Oh, dancing in. What's up, 10X group?
What's going on, everybody?
Jason and I were having lunch and a little meeting. We wanted to talk to you and figure out where's your head at. Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing? What are you going through? I thought this is the perfect song. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I think this is the first time we've ever both gone live in this group.
Pretty much together.
I don't think we have together. I've shared videos in here of some of my lives, but I don't think we've ever gone live together. So if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in. Drop it in the comments. We were having a great strategy session here, talking about a lot of different things that we're working on, and really said, you know what, we should be recording this or just putting it out there live. So instead of doing it on our personal pages to our audience, we said, you know what, let's go to the 10X community, because a lot of what we're talking about is inspired by going to the 10X conference. I recently attended the 10X GrowCon in Miami. So a lot of it was based around that. So so let's get back into it.
Absolutely.
I think we were on a good little run there for a while.
So we really started talking about a lot of different topics, but I think we wanted to really break it down into a few different points that hopefully something will be useful to the people in our 10X community in South Florida, or at least just globally. But I don't know, where do we want to start? But also, while we're talking, if there's anything that you guys want to ask and you want us to pick your brains or pick our brains about, feel free to jump in, throw some questions down. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jason Wasser. I'm a licensed therapist and certified business coach here in South Florida, and we actually met through the 10X online group
community,
and connected at the Gary V event a few months ago. So
thanks to Martin and Chelsea.
Thanks to Martin and Chelsea.
And then you said you were in my area, and I always comment bomb their videos, so I was like, oh man, he's right in my neighborhood.
Exactly.
All right, and I am a licensed driver, so that's that's my certification, and I have a business license too, hanging up in the back. I'm actually a business development coach, so help small businesses, entrepreneurs, start their business idea and grow it, and look at other ways to generate income and go in that direction. So that's kind of what I do in a nutshell. But one of the reasons Jason and I started talking is I'm also looking at my business and how to grow it and structure it and change it. And been in entrepreneurship for a while, working with the various entrepreneurs, for various entrepreneurs, and being an entrepreneur myself. I've had a lot of growing pains and a lot of things I've learned, and now I'm trying to hone that in a way to help other people. And Jason and I have been talking a lot about that and looking at things we could do together based on those experiences. And really, the entrepreneurship journey can be so lonely, or it can be overly communal, which could be another issue. Too much conversation, too much thinking and delving, and not enough doing. Right, not enough doing. So we've been looking at different strategies that go with that, and kind of what that looks like. So.
Well, let's go back to the conversation we had over lunch, which was this idea of calling yourself an entrepreneur. So I know we were going back and forth on that for a little bit, and the idea that you open up a business, you do something, you don't even have to legally open up a business, but the idea that you create an LLC or an S-Corp, and then all of a sudden you think you're an entrepreneur.
Right. Or you get a website.
Or you get a website, right.
For $12.99 on GoDaddy.
Yeah, or even free, you get an Instagram, right? You get an Instagram page. So what do you, we can talk about this, and we'd love to hear your feedback, but what actually is your personal definition of an entrepreneur? I can tell you that mine, those of you who follow Matt Monero on Facebook and on social media and his podcast, the You Need More Money podcast, he and I met through Business Finishing School, which is a program that he's been talking about the last couple of weeks. And Rick Sapio, the creator of Business Finishing School, talks about entrepreneurship as an entrepreneur, as a person who defines their core values and then makes decisions based on that while holding themselves accountable.
Right.
So my thing is that if you aren't clearly defining your core values for different aspects of your life, right? Friends, family, relationships, investments, business partners, your actual career, you have nothing to really weigh your decisions against. Right. So I think it's that accountability aspect of entrepreneurship, because anybody can say it. I'm opening up a media business. I'm opening this. What's holding you accountable, and what goals, and as well as what core values? So that would be my starting point for an entrepreneurship conversation. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I agree. And I think, one of the things that always fascinated me, and I've talked about this before in some of my live videos, is who identifies themselves as an entrepreneur. To me, brick and mortar business owners are in some ways an entrepreneur in the purest form, because they're actually starting a business. There's so much that goes along with that. Not to knock other people, but more people that have just like you said, come up with an idea or have a website, and they're like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but you haven't done anything yet. To me, an entrepreneur is more of a verb than it is a noun. Entrepreneur is a result of being in business or having an idea or concept. Someone posted in the Banner Nation group that I'm in is, what advice would you have for an entrepreneur starting out? And I said very boldly, don't be an entrepreneur. That's not what you want to do. Figure out what your business is, figure out your product or service, and once again, find your core values, who you want to market it to, and then you will be an entrepreneur. Then you will be involved in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship isn't a job. It's more of an action or a
the way you're
concept,
describing it kind of sounds like you're saying the people who are willing to put skin in the game.
Yes.
So advertising and saying this is what I do without any real investment,
right,
and just waiting for it to come in just by putting something out here of I'm going to do this, here's what I can do, is very different than saying here is the problem that I can solve.
Right.
Here are the problems I have been solving.
Right.
Now let's take it from there, but what's the skin in the game that the average person is putting in? So we are brick and mortar on one level, and we're also online based as we do both of our coaching, both online and over the phone and stuff like that, but there's an investment that we've had. Right. We have
it's time, it's money, it's equipment, it's personnel,
office,
it's everything. Yeah.
So then how do we figure that out to go from do we need that? Can you do something online without having to invest in all that, but still put the skin in the game? Right?
Yeah, and I think that it's, and I think the all-in aspect of entrepreneurship as well. I know many people who and are budding entrepreneurs, if you will, and have that balance of they're skating that dream of, and Gary and Grant talk about this, finding something you're passionate to do, right? But having that day job where you have to put food on the table, right? You have to pay the bills. If you got kids, we talked about I have 4 kids. It's like the first priority, no matter how much I want to get involved in a business or do something, is providing food for my family.
Sure.
I don't want my, why are we going hungry? Because daddy's an entrepreneur, and he's, I say, you can't feed your kids equity flakes. I tell people this all the time. I could have tons of equity in your company, but if it doesn't translate to dollars, I can't tell my kids, hey, we're going to, you can't go out to Disney and say, hey, would you take like 3% of this company so I could go to the park for a day? It just, it doesn't work. So it's balancing that tangible line too. I think so many people don't know when to go all in, and it's a very difficult. There's no right answer for it. I don't think so.
And it's a timing, and it's also very, very, very patience based. Like when I was in graduate school, I was working 3 jobs and going to graduate school at night, and that didn't stop until I really built my own private practice.
Isn't that a form of entrepreneurship?
100%.
Like working 3 jobs could be classified as entrepreneurship.
Well, I was living my purpose. I was living my passion, and I had one private practice that allowed me really like my agency job during the day, which wasn't my key clients, but it funded the ability for me to have my private practice, which was the core focus of the clients I really did want to see, that I wanted to build. So yes, I had the 9-to-5 gritty job that I hated driving around South Florida for, but that allowed me the freedom and the liberty to build my private practice, which I'm only doing right now, and then I get to teach, and I get to travel to conferences, and I get to travel to workshops. That's all for fun now. Right? So it constantly shifts and moves.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I was always very, I don't want to say anti-conference, but I said, well, I don't know if I need that. Why do I need to go to a conference when Grant's online, or why do I need to go to a conference when I could see, Gary speak? And I really, for the majority of my career, I would only go to a conference if I was working for a client, right? I've attended tons of conferences.
That was paid for.
Just never for myself, right? It was always like because we had a booth, or we were doing something at the trade show, or I was speaking. What value is that, and what balance is it too between, because there are so many conferences now, so many people are coming. I know I was kidding around with someone the other day. I think I've almost seen half the sharks on Shark Tank speak this year. Kevin O'Leary's coming to Miami next week. I'm going to be seeing him. So what's the balance though, and how do you think people need to work that in the business? Because I know you've attended 10X, you've attended some great conferences. What's your thoughts on that?
I think the fact that you are clearing out a chunk of your schedule where everything else gets put to the side, and you're focusing solely on that. But there's something about like taking a webinar or doing some program online where you're blocking out like an hour or 45 minutes, or you pop onto someone's podcast like you guys are doing to ours right now, where you're stopping in the middle of the day, maybe listening to us in the background, but this is a dedicated space that you're committing to, that you're putting this as the highest priority. I think that makes a difference between going to a conference versus doing some type of home learning, or I'm going to listen to a YouTube video, or I'm going to listen to whatever, Gary, or anybody online. That's more of like a convenience based, that's like on demand. This is really, I think you're committing to something, which goes back to the value of entrepreneurship. What are you committing to?
Right.
So I kind of see it as that, and plus you're also around a community.
Yes.
And community is huge.
Yes.
Too much sometimes, too little and other times.
Right.
But you will find your like-minded tribe there. That's how we connected. We haven't, right? And, and we made sure we met at the Gary V thing, like right.
That was a priority.
So that was a priority in that morning, and then things developed as our friendship from there. But it's that you will find more like-minded people in like-minded places as opposed to sitting in front of your computer and just banging back instant messengers to each other.
Right. And I think that brings up a good point of the idea of entrepreneurship being a solo journey, right? And then this lonely at the top mentality is you're going to need to form a team, and you're going to need to build people around you, and finding those type of people is going to be difficult. And I think attending these events lets you be an environment of people who are maybe like-minded that you could either partner with or employ or bring in or strategically fill a gap. We always hear double down on your strengths and outsource your weaknesses. Well, everyone's, I think, has different strengths and weaknesses. Going to these events is a good time to meet those type of people and find a social media guy or find someone that's good at accounting or whatever it may be.
So I think that solopreneur idea is outdated.
Yes.
Right? I think everybody's trying to I'm going to do it, I'm going to do everything, I'm going to be the expert, and I'm going to be the brand, and I'm going to be the person. That's great if you have that personality and you want to make it around you, but even Grant, who's a very, very big personality, has a Jared and has a Captain Ryan, right? And has a team around him, and has Elena, and has these people that are representation, that are also their own business in their own rights. They're just selling someone else's product on their behalf. But I think the idea of I was a solopreneur for many years, and even though I had associates working under me, my mindset still was, this is Jason Wasser's practice.
Yes.
And that has changed. It had to change. It needs to change. And I want to challenge people out there to change that for themselves as well.
So what was the hurdles though when you were in that mindset though of just that it is that, the buck stops here, or it has to be just you? What were the challenges you
Burnout.
Yeah.
Burnout, frustration, knowing that I hire would be good enough. The bare minimum standards that I have for anybody else's business is different than what I would expect for my business.
Yes.
I also would expect them to have the exact same skill set and areas of interest that I had.
So that's a great point, and how do you balance it? Because I had someone say to me once, as a business owner and entrepreneur, you have to understand no one that you hire, no one that you bring into your business is going to be as passionate about it as you are, which is that, I think, one of the things that makes entrepreneurs successful and really a great group to be around is their drive, right? Yeah. Their excitement, their energy, they're passionate about what they're doing. Could be a terrible idea, but they're passionate about it, right? Yeah. Could be a great idea, but they're passionate about it. But trying to hire employees, in a sense, because you can't hire a bunch of type A entrepreneur people or everyone will just be passionate and don't want to get anything done. How do you balance that? And I don't want to say lowering your standards, but learning how to, I guess, outsource the passion, if you will, in the certain areas. Is it does that mean more people? Does it mean, what does that look like in business?
I think it goes back to something that we talk about often in our conversations, which is the value.
Right.
What is the purpose and the value of your business? If you think about company culture, what makes one company better than the other is that people want to work for the culture. Right? Google for the last 15 years, it's not just working for the name of a company, but it's also you can sit and have a beer while you're there.
Right.
You can have they have all these other amenities.
But other businesses have tried to replicate that as putting out free Cheerios and they crashed and burned.
Right, but because it wasn't authentic, that became a trend, not authentic to what they were.
Right.
I can't. My practice as a clinician, right? I'm not going to expect my therapists to be sitting in the waiting room in between sessions on beanbags.
Right.
It's just not part of the culture. It's not also part of the identity of what you expect. Although my therapists are friendly, my team is friendly, it's an outgoing, it's a comfortable place, but that culture won't fit for some Silicon Valley that I'm trying to do here.
Right.
So we really have to, and this is something that we want to help businesses and other professionals identify is what is the culture that your business is trying to create, and really be authentic. But I think at the end of the day, it goes back to core values.
Yeah.
And identifying what are the 5, 3, 4, 5, 7 core values of your business, and then making every single decision through that.
Right.
And then you can't go wrong.
And I think you hitting on that point is so important because I think it's something we see that's missed so often in business because there's so much focus on the product or the service and not enough on the process, right? And not enough on looking at, and one of the things I've been able to kind of grow my business in business development consulting is saying, I always say there's people that are independently wealthy who have a lot of money to hire somebody to manage that money and make it grow.
Right.
Well, I think entrepreneurs and business owners are independently intelligent. They have a great idea or a great service, or if you're a restaurant, you're a great cook, but you need somebody to help you manage that to make it grow.
And that's the Superman, Superwoman syndrome, right? Yes. So
But you need to make the idea grow. To make the business grow, you may need to bring in an accountant to help you, or a marketer to help you. Just because you're great at cooking doesn't mean you're going to be great at social media. It doesn't mean you're going to be great at back office. Doesn't mean you're going to be great at HR.
Plating it.
Right.
You may not be able to do the presentation.
Right.
And I think Ty Lopez talked about it at 10X, where he said it's that yin-yang balance,
Yes.
right? If you're the intellectual with the ideas, but you're really crappy at execution and
Left
going
brain,
out
right
and being
brain.
left brain, right brain, right? So I think that's the key of really finding the people there that have those pieces to fit in. And you have to know the difference between who's hired help and who's a brand ambassador.
Right. And I think too, one of the things is that's going to be an ongoing process, right? That's going to be organic. I don't think you can stagnantly, or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but get stagnant with it, and say that's it. We figured out our corporate culture. We figured out our hiring, because like any relationship, like a marriage, like a friendship, like whatever it may be, it changes and grows over time, right? And if we're not adapting our business and constantly reassessing those goals and those standards and challenging
You're
our
outdated every week. I remember, so a bunch of years ago, I went back and I applied for the doctorate program from the program that I graduated from, my master's, and I got accepted, and some life stuff came up, and I wasn't able to do the program. Looking back now, so that would have been 2010-ish, I would have finished around 2013, 2014 with my doctorate. I am so thankful for that life crisis, because the doctorate that I would have had is already outdated.
Yeah.
And I know like some of my colleagues are going to freak out. I know my professors would freak out. I know the university would freak out if I said that. The second you finish that course, it's outdated.
Right.
If the course is not already outdated as well.
Right.
So apply that to your business. If you're not creating quarterly and annual goals, both professional and personal, and you're not updating those every 3 months, you're outdated.
Right.
And then you have to make your action steps based on that.
Yep.
So I think that's something that I really want to empower everybody who's out there listening to really think about that.
And I think when you look at business, the type of entrepreneur you are, you have to look at how you're going through that process, right? Because sometimes that does require accountability of working with somebody outside of your business or a consultant or a coach, because sometimes you can do it internally if your team's big enough and all that, but maybe you're a realtor, or maybe you're someone who's a not a solo entrepreneur but a smaller business, or you're working on something a little more niche. That's where you may need the guidance, I think, and plugging in those groups, which once again, why the conferences are so important, why the events are so important, why engagement in groups like this, you look at these 10X groups, you see people who are really asking pertinent questions to get information and gather details and data to help them grow their business, and people are willing to give that advice out as well.
Right.
So it's the engagement, knowing where to get that, and I think the constant assessment is so important in, like you said, establishing those core values of who you are, because it is going to be organic as the market changes, as the business changes, as your degrees change, everything, that's an important
But the
growth.
meaning behind why you're doing what you're doing can be static.
Yes.
Right? The reason behind your business is very static.
Yes.
What's it about?
Right.
You know what it's about.
Right.
Right? It's really what you're going home to.
Right. And I mean, so let's talk about that for a second, because so many people too want to get into an industry and say, I could do so much, right? Or I do social media management and website design and all this, or if I say I could do business development for any industry, right? Like that for me would be very blanket. I know I could do most industries, but there's somewhere I excel at because my background's in education. I've done things in employee training, so I know where my niche is in a sense. But what about these people that try to take on too much, right? Or try to bite off too much, and that's part of the passion of the entrepreneur, right? That's our
It's the next
our
thing.
strength
Is it
and
a
weakness.
Trend? Right. Is it a trend they're jumping onto? But we're just taking it a step back. But going back to what is the purpose why you're in business? Not the business, not the service that you're providing.
Right.
But what is the reason why you are in business? And it's embedded in the name of your business.
Right. So mine's I do it for my family. It's the Mags Group. It's my kids' names: Michael, Anthony, Giovanni, and Stella. I got 4. That's a whole other episode. But the idea is that's I named the company because I wanted to realize that that's my focus, right? Everything I'm doing in business, the first question I ask myself: does it benefit my family? Is it going to benefit my family? And is it going to allow me to provide them the lifestyle I want? Not the big cars and the houses and the planes, but like the
if that comes, that's great.
Bonus, and I'm sure they'll get a kick out of it. But what kids want is, and what I found is, they want that they don't want to feel the stress, right? And kids and animals feel you, and they feel what you are. So I don't want to be doing things in my business that aren't going to, I want my kids to see that I'm working hard.
Yeah.
I want them to see I'm being challenged. I want them to know how to work through that. But unnecessary stress because of overextending yourself, I don't think helps the business, right?
Well, think about it. You've also have arranged your time and your schedule,
right,
to be with them when you can be with them.
Yes.
Even when like when we're going away for a conference in a month to the Business Mastery Summit, right? You're rearranging to make sure that you can spend time because it's your son's birthday.
Yes.
And that's the first conversation we had.
Right.
But I want to go to this conference. I have to figure out how I can make this the priority. My son first.
Right.
The business thing second. Once I get that figured out, then I can commit to.
Right.
That's a very different mindset than what most people are actually considering.
And the other thing is too, my wife was very agreeable with that. So it was also very important that my team,
right,
whether it's at home or the office, also understands the values of why I'm doing these things, why I'm taking the time away, why I'm going. My son as well, being on the team, talking about the process. It's I think the methodologies that you use, and I think we do this a lot, right? Some people are really great at applying these type of hard decision situations, or we talk to our kids about what do you think, or raising them right. But we don't take some of those same things and even raising kids the same way as raising a business, right? Your business is in an infant stage. You gotta coddle it. You gotta change the diaper every once in a while. Sometimes it gets messy. It's we think of a business as like a grown adult, as if it comes out as an adult, but we don't do that with kids. We need to learn to balance that and look at that, and I think that's the other thing people really miss out to. I think so many people out there have the skills and talents they need within them. You're not missing the tools. You're missing the sharpening in the organization of them.
Yeah.
You're missing the ability for someone to look at you from the outside and say, I see what you're doing there. You have that, go and run with that and go in this direction.
So that's, I call that like your blind spot or your rear view mirror.
Right.
Who else is looking out for you? Right, and there's a difference between metaphorically having your training wheels on as you grow and develop your business. What do you charge now versus what you're going to charge in 5 years from now, and be patient and don't be greedy. And also having the people in your life that are going to say, not the contrarians, but have you thought about this? Are you going to be okay doing this if you have to miss out on that? Right. And learning that you have other people who are also invested in your success.
Yep.
And I think that's a key component when you're saying my wife is involved in this, my child is involved with this.
Right.
That's a big positive.
Right.
And I think most people, especially now since entrepreneurship is not just a fad, but it's a mainstay now of young professional culture.
Well, it's so funny to me because it's a valid career option now.
Right.
And I talk about this. I have a book coming out in August, and I talk about this in there. How I never saw the non-college. The non-college option was always failure. Right. The non-college option, and I was born in the '80s, graduated in '99. The non-college option was always failure. Where entrepreneurship is given, I think, this generation, and obviously social media and the internet's had a lot to do with that. The opportunity for new success. It's a valid path. It's like, you could. And it's almost become the ancillary term for innovator or creator. It's like you could either go be an employee or an entrepreneur in some groups. And there's value to both, right? And I think, but the concepts of entrepreneurship could be applied no matter which road you take.
Absolutely.
Because it's two things. And that's why I think entrepreneurship is more of a...
Well, it is left brain, right brain balance, right? You have to be really creative because on one side, if you are for the businesses that are not recreating the wheel, right? You're doing drop shipping or you're doing something like that. You're having an Amazon Prime store. You're finding, right? That's more analytics. That's more logistics. But you also have to find the right product that is gonna, right? And you have to be creative to think about and do checks and balances of what's gonna work versus what's not gonna work, versus just being in an industry that's either just analytics, like you're a CPA, you're a lawyer, that may not be creative once you get into a niche, or the other side of the round where it's just all creative, where you're a musician, you're an artist, but you don't have the skills to sell. What do you mean? I make money on my art? That's ridiculous. I would never think to charge $1,000 for what I'm doing. So I think entrepreneurship, if done right, really synthesizes that. The creative and the logistical side, but also really being self-aware enough to understand what you're good at and what you need to bring your team in to accomplish.
I was going to make a statement, but let me maybe frame it to you more as a question then. Can you be an entrepreneur as an employee? Like, can you be an entrepreneur within a business? And I was going to make a statement. I believe you can, and I think we don't talk about it enough. Most people think entrepreneurship just means you started your own business.
Right.
But I think you could go to work for Coca-Cola and be an entrepreneur within Coca-Cola and be like, I'm going to work for Coca-Cola and revolutionize how they distill soda. It may take, I may have to climb the ranks and get in there, or, you know. Do you think, though, because there is some people in the entrepreneurship community say you're not really an entrepreneur if you work for somebody, and okay.
You are if you believe in the mission and the values of the business, right? Grant, in one of Grant's books, he was talking about going out to the steak restaurant. He asked the waitress, what's the best steak? And she's like, I don't know, I'm a vegan.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with
what are you doing working
What are you doing working there? And business owner, what are you doing hiring a vegan? Now, go be vegan. Right? That's not the debate here. The debate is, does that align? But if you're a health snob, don't work at Coca-Cola.
Right.
Unless you're going to be the person who's taking over their natural healthy eating initiatives, but you also have to know the limitations of the function of that community as well, and you can't get frustrated when they only hit a wall.
Right.
But going back to any job, the reason why I became an entrepreneur, so to speak, my own business owner, is because the places I worked, at the end of the day, wasn't about the team. It was about the boss.
Right.
It wasn't about incentivizing and making everybody else feel like they have some type of ownership over it. It was, this is so-and-so's business, this is so-and-so's practice, this is so-and-so's agency. I'm just a cog, and I'm hired help. I'm interchangeable.
Right.
One job I worked at where I was in charge of programming, the day I realized that me and the janitor were really both hired help, even though I was finishing my master's degree, even though I was doing direct access service to people in the community, both children and adults, we were both just as disposable.
Yes.
That's when it started kicking in for me.
Yeah.
So that business is that organization is now out of business.
Yeah.
Because they treated their staff as such as.
Right.
And I think that's really the difference when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think and I think it does, a lot of it goes back to culture and mindset, right? And looking at, you know, and I always give the sports analogy. There's a lot of great players that have made terrible coaches, and there's a lot of terrible players that have made great coaches. Mm-hmm. So it's just, I think it's finding that balance of where you fit. There's a lot of people who understand the game, if you will, but don't know how to, or don't have the physical attributes maybe to play it as well, or aren't able to put everything together. But they
or investing in the wrong places.
Right. Yeah. And that's the other thing. And then there's other people that play the game really well, but couldn't show you how to get to actually do it, to duplicate themselves, right? And I think that's the key point. Can you duplicate what you do? Because if you are the bottleneck, or if you are the secret sauce, which you will be, but you also have to be able to duplicate a certain portion of that.
Yeah, and I guess it's investing into your team. It's finding that you are getting out of your own ego enough to trust into your own team.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about building a team for a second, because I think one of the hardest things for entrepreneurs to do, myself included, is hiring and even firing, right? Like, how do you interview somebody? How do you quality, you know, what if I'm starting a business and all of a sudden I've got an idea, it's starting to blow up, I got to hire people, I've never done anything like this before. How do you hire somebody? Like, it's a simple question, but it really is, to me, a big challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, well, I guess the first step is actually understanding, what do you need, right? If you're not bullet pointing the job description, if you don't have an ironclad job description, as well as taking it to people that you trust to take a look at, again, going back to that solopreneur, I'm going to do it by myself, trial by fire. One of my buddies who I talked to the other day just opened up his law practice. The nicest guy, smart guy, really ethical, really honest. And I said, come to the Business Mastery Summit, right, with me. And it's a bargain. He's like, well, I don't know, maybe I should do it in a year after I do a year of grunt work. I'm like, this is your own practice.
Right.
You don't need to be the grunt in your own practice. Why not start now, not learn the harder, shorter way?
Right.
And the same advice I gave to a buddy of mine who is coming he's a chiropractor. He messaged me the other day. He's like, you were so right. I was being Superman.
Right.
And he's now hiring an associate to be an assistant, to do his billing, to do his scheduling, because he can't treat his clients and be the office manager at the same time to save the $14 an hour.
Right.
So again, cost benefit analysis, know what you need. Know that you either are the person working in the business or the person working on the business. I think that's the big split when knowing who to hire. And also know that you might have to invest some time, effort, and energy. On one side, you expect them to come in ready to go. On the other side, you have to train them in culture.
Right. Right, and I think having an onboarding process is so important.
Huge.
You know, no
And
matter
you do
what
that, right?
position.
Don't you
Yeah,
do that
oh,
with
yeah,
some of your with a lot of your clients?
Absolutely, yeah. And even the books we give them, you know, and you know, there's always a set of books I like to give. The 4-Hour Work Week, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then I've been giving them Gary Vee's new book, Crushing It. I've been rotating the Gary Vee books as they come out, only because I feel there are 3 key concepts that are really important to what we do. I love the 4-Hour Work Week. I love Tim Ferriss. I love about it's not about working 4 hours a week. It's about balance, right? And how you schedule your life and finding what you do in passion. How to Win Friends and Influence People is just a great communication book. I'm sure most people in this group have read it. And then as well, giving them the Gary Vee books, I think talks to the climate of social media. Gary's done a great job of putting books out that are speaking to that, going in that direction.
And it's definitely not going to be his last one because it's always changing. I think as far as when it comes to social media, you know, the people that are really getting it is Gary. I mean, he really has that interaction with everything, but he also realizes that it is a dead space the day after he broadcasts something. It's what's new.
Right.
What's the next thing? Because it is evolving. And, you know, and I think the way that he put it was the internet right now is social media. There's no social media and the internet.
Right.
So if you're not leveraging it, if you're not accessing, right, we were having this conversation, there was nothing on, and I'm like, dude, we got to put this. Yeah. We have this conversation on air, and then like, wait, Amber's here. What's going on, Amber?
Hi, Amber.
Right, and there's whoever else is listening. But if you have any questions, if you guys have any questions while we're talking, we're happy to address some of them. But it's realizing that everything is constantly changing, and it's radically that instant gratification is no longer fast enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have to address that.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't matter what business you're going into, that's so important. But then that takes us back to patience, right? That takes us back to, and you talk about Gary, we've been talking about Grant, and sorry for being in the 10 group, X group saying I don't give out any of Grant's books, but you know, once they get to that point, if sales is their thing, that fits them, right? So that's a good point. Let's talk about that for a second. There is so much knowledge out there and so much information. The Tim Ferrisses of the world, the Garys, the Grants, Matt Monero, Kerwin Ray, like all these great people.
Guys, Ray Dalio.
And I've always kind of given the buffet example, right? I see all these guys as like a knowledge buffet where you kind of got to go and take what you need and leave the rest. But I see so many people fall into, I want to be Grant. Yeah. I want to be Gary. I want to be, and what do you think is the psychological downfall of that, right? Is it a lot of pressure? It's a lot of pressure. Is it? But you know, some people
it's also
like
disingenuous.
Right. Well, I'm shooting for the moon and I'll land among the stars. But is it? But you know, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, again, it's knowing your skill set, and anybody can do what we're doing right now. It's Hank Norman, a little shout out to Hank, it's just hit record, right? So we're not doing anything right now that's so radically exceptional. We're just sharing our thoughts and philosophies and the data that we've distilled. So, you know, I'm a big, as a therapist and as a business coach, my job is to distill data that is going to uniquely fit the person I'm working with, right? So Joe Schmo A and Joe Schmo B might have the same issue, but the context around their issue is going to be radically different. So if I'm constantly giving you the same close, right, if you're going into a workbook, and you know, listen, one of the things is, like we were talking about, like Grant's book, so the Closer Survival Guide is an amazing book. That works for me only when I have a client that's on the cusp of deciding whether they want to pay my fee or not. And when I wrote and I used a close that I adjusted for one of my clients, and I said, would you rather pay me now X amount of dollars, $2,000-$3,000 over the course of a couple months for a couple sessions, or would you rather pay your attorney $10,000 to get that divorce?
Right.
The person wrote back, you're an amazing salesperson. Right. All I literally did was just edit and copy and paste from Grant's book. Right. Now, I can't use that close for every single person. It's also disingenuous of me to do that. I don't have this repertoire. I want to be a little bit more humanistic when it comes to it, but some businesses do call for that. Right. Grant is a master of that. Yes. There is pressure. Let's admit it. There is pressure to close in his industry or those type of industries, but you have to be authentic. And if you're not being authentic, it will show up.
So, and I think a lot of people out there, if you're an entrepreneur, you have to do sales, right? Yeah. And then maybe you haven't done sales, and like I said, maybe you're an idea person. And I think a lot of people suffer from closer's guilt, right? Like it's well, I feel bad. I know maybe they don't want, but they said no, you know, and no, you know, no means no, and that's it. I got to move on. How do you I think the first question is, how do you determine like when to push and when not to, right? Because closing, and obviously Closer Survival got a great book to read to help you with that. But how do you get over that closer's guilt and know when to push and not to push?
I think if the information you provide is value. Everything at the end of the day is value.
Right.
And we were talking about this, in the past, and I talked about this with one of my clients today. It's when the person believes that what they're getting is worth $1 more than what they're paying, they're going to buy.
Right.
So that's the, what is it, jab, 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 left hook,
Yeah.
right? I love that philosophy.
Yeah.
It's overgive, overgive, overgive before you even begin to ask. And I think so many people, when you're in the groups or when you're in the the Facebook groups or the Instagram stuff, or they're just saying, hire me for this.
Right.
What are you offering?
Or they're over giving. There's the other extreme too, where you're
That's
almost
very few and far between.
Yes. But I know some people do fall, and like I said, myself included. I take on consultations all the time where I feel like, well, I'm going into, like, oh shoot, I'm at the point where I should be charging, but like we're so engaged in this meeting, how do I flip that? And that's one of those things where I think, yes, I agree that there's many people that are asking too soon, but I do think there's a good amount of people out there who don't know when to convert to. Especially, and I think there's a big culture now of people trying to get into coaching and consulting because it seems like a good idea, right? And it's the hot thing right now.
Right.
Some people I think have actual value. Some people I think are overextending themselves. Like you can't make a career in business coaching if you haven't been in business. Right. You can't just jump right into it.
It doesn't mean you have to make millions and millions of dollars in business. One of the companies I work with is a multi-million-dollar business.
Right.
But if I help them go from 3% annual to 10% annual, there's value. But I'm also coming from, I don't know when did I graduate, 2005. So from 2005 to now, I've been coaching through a therapeutic paradigm. So you want to make sure, this is a really important topic. It's kind of like a rant and a rave, right?
No, absolutely,
but
absolutely.
People who are advertising as coaching, you have to understand, everybody out there who's listening, coaching is a non-regulated industry. There's not one. There's 2 or 3 major organizations, and you can get your training program that can align back up with their big overall thing, but there's no self-regulation, there's no licensure, there's no real liability insurance, there's no you're taking a risk.
Right.
So anybody who literally, it is legal for you to wake up tomorrow morning and call yourself a coach.
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem with what's out there. So I want people out there to understand that you need to really check and verify what you're buying into and what you're investing. Now, there are people who are not coaches that are selling you amazing programs. You have to know what you're getting there too, and you will get value. And I think everybody can bring you value, but you have to kind of do a cost-benefit analysis of getting really clear on your goals. And is that person an expert in that area to get you there? Right. So don't hire a social media person if you want to figure out business
and social media is another extremely saturated. Everyone's an expert in social media, and that's something to definitely shop around, validate. I mean, the nice thing I think too, social media different from coaching is the numbers don't lie, right? Like on social media, if they send you a client, you can see what they've done and validate them. Coaching, it is a little more different, and that's why I think too. I think going back to your core values of what you're doing, you'll know if somebody fits when you see them there. I think so much of business and taking on clients, hiring personnel, and all that is based on if you have and I think if you
it's organic.
But I think if you live, and it's living in the core set of values, right? The biggest thing I think that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs and sometimes is you feel like you have to compromise. Right. And when you compromise, you have to, there's a difference between compromising and adapting. And I'm a big fan of your biggest strength is also your biggest weakness, right? So it's like you have to be very careful of these things that are helpful because if you do them wrong, they can be hurtful, right? It's it's that very thin line, and being able, I think that level of self-awareness, and you and I talked about this at lunch as well, that Gary speaks about that, you have to be very comfortable in who you are. Yeah. And I think you'll know, especially if you're going down the entrepreneurial journey or when do you push for the close or when do you do these things, it's about having a comfort in who you are and what you're doing, and it's putting yourself in positions where am I pushing them because they're closing because I need to pay the electric bill this month, or am I pushing to close them because this is really going to benefit them?
And if it's not a win-win for everybody, right? One of the things I always talk about when I'm hiring or I'm considering with a new associate is I want to be able to sleep at night.
Yes.
And I'm very, very sensitive to that, as we had the conversation with one of my associates at lunch today. Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep. I'm really thinking about I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep if I don't rectify. And it's such a nothing thing to fix, and it's not even an issue, right? As you're listening, what's this thing he's talking about? But it's something that I want to make sure that I'm creating value for this associate. Of why would they want to work with me versus why would they not go down the block to another practice?
Exactly.
And if I create that integrity in that dynamic by doing this, I believe that this is one of the most authentic things I can do for a new associate. Right. Because it's really oh wow, look what this person is realizing I'm losing out, so to speak, on something, right? That's a
Right.
dollar amount that I'm going to lose out on.
Right.
But it's a long-term investment.
Right.
I think that solidifies for us as business owners. Are you willing to say, listen, I said I was going to charge you $1,000, right? I really think now, here's the bill, but I really did it at $900. Doesn't mean you have to charge them $900 every single time you do a new project for them, but if you do that
Right.
once, and it's not about making deals, it's not about making little side agreements, it's that, listen, I overquoted you.
Right.
Sometimes you can do that.
Right.
And I think sometimes that brings
And it's
extra
the like the waitress today at lunch,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't finish my salad. I said, "Can I get a to-go box to take it home?" She came back with the to-go box, a bag, and extra dressing for me to have at home. I didn't ask for the extra dressing.
Right.
I didn't ask for the bag. And not only that, she stood there while I packed it up and waited to take the dirty
was
plate away
amazing.
because she knew we were having a meeting. So
Right.
she didn't have to do that. You watch around, there was other waitresses not doing that. That's obviously not a corporate norm for that restaurant because I've been there several times, and I can tell you that hasn't happened to me there. But she went above and beyond and did something she didn't have to do.
That's a hireable person that you want working
in order
for you.
to secure, to secure the sale.
Yep.
To secure the tip.
And the sale's
she's
already done.
She's getting a tip
Right,
either
right,
way,
right,
right?
right, right.
I'm going to tip her either way, but I tipped her maybe a little bit more because she did that. But either way, and she didn't know whether or not I was a good tipper or a bad tipper. She can't tell how I'm dressed or, I wasn't wearing a fancy watch or anything like that. But she went above and beyond, and I even said to her, "Oh, that was very nice that you did that." She's like, "Yeah, like I wouldn't send you to the bathroom without toilet paper."
Right.
She took it into something too, and that's such a simple analogy, right? It's like sometimes we overcomplicate these things. It's the simplistic that makes us successful. Like Mark Zuckerberg's whole thing when he created Facebook was that people want to have exclusivity and build relationships. And that was it. It was simple. The most important thing to do, too, is don't overcomplicate this. It's a complicated process. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated.
But you hit it. I think you answered your question without realizing you answered your question. And Matt talks about this in his book, in the You Need More Money book. It's I'm hiring you to anticipate my needs.
Exactly, yes.
That's what that waitress did. She
Yes.
anticipated whether you were sure whether you needed it or not. You might have gone home and said, "You know what? I really like that dressing, and I don't have any at home."
Right.
She anticipated that need, right, with
Right.
half a salad
Right.
left. So that's it. Grant talked about it, I think, in Sell or Be Sold, where he talked about bringing someone into his office, and he's like, "Okay, would you like a water or would you like a soda?" And the question is, do you want it with ice in the glass, right, or do you want it with a straw? And he just literally brought the ice, right, the glass of ice with the soda, opened it. Straws there.
Right.
Which way do you want it? I'm ready. I'm making it all ready for you to choose, but you don't have to ask me for it. I'm going to give you the option of choosing which way you want it because all the options are there waiting for you. That's customer service. That's the type of employees you want to be hiring.
Yes, and that's how you want to treat your customers too as well. I think it's so important in entrepreneurship and business. I've seen so many businesses get caught in the trap of like what my product could do for someone else. It's not what problem your product solves or what it does, which is important, but how does it value the customer? I think value
Relationships
versus problem solving is so much more important because if you go with the product and you tell them, "Oh, don't you have this problem? Don't you have that problem? And this will fix this will fix that," instead of asking them, "What are the problems you have? How can I help you?" And then anticipating and having all the options ready with the answers is going to get you more traction than trying to come in and predict what their problems are and have a solution for a problem maybe they don't have, and you don't let them talk.
Right. So this is the big thing that I've found, and if I'm going to speak directly to the 10X group, is don't try to sell me without getting to know what I need, what my business is about, what my values are. Don't tell me that you're the greatest and you have this amazing deal.
All you network marketers who message me and say, "Where are you from? What do you do?" If you literally were on my page for 3 seconds, you would know that.
Right.
And it's like, if you send me that, I'm not engaging with you, and this is a rant. I'm not engaging with you because you didn't take the time. I'll learn. I'm always looking for a business opportunity. I'll listen to you. But if you literally send me a message on Facebook and say, "Where are you from and what do you do?" Come on, man.
And I love it because Matt talked about that. Matt Monero talked about that when he was hiring someone, and he said, okay, he was going back and forth in emails, and he goes, "What's the address of your office?" He's like, "Don't bother showing up." I'm obviously not getting this story right, but if I am right, but he's like, if you can't look up where my office is in Dallas, Texas, you're not coming in for the interview. If you have to make me work harder to get you to come in for an interview, you're not the type of person I want. Google is there. Know your data. Know how to reach out to who you need to reach out to, get what you need to get. Do your due diligence. Do your research.
And it's so easy nowadays. It's so easy. Facebook, LinkedIn. And now when I do get a message, someone says, "Oh, hey, I see you're in Florida. You have a beautiful family. Whatever it is. Oh, I love your dancing on your videos." then I'm going to engage with them.
Right.
So it may not be an opportunity for you, you may not make a sale, but I'm more likely to talk to you, or maybe refer you to somebody.
Follow, right.
And this is the danger of scripts, guys. This is and like you said, you adapted the script from Grant to fit your business. Adapt your script. There may be a script that says, well, ask people where they're from and what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that may work if you don't know them or it's not on their page, but if you're not taking that first step, you're not even going to get past step one. I think adaptability and learning is
and this is where the social
important.
media component comes in, right? If someone goes onto my Instagram page, Jason Wasser LMFT, right, you're going to find a theme. Even though I'm obviously talking about self-help and self-awareness, stuff like that, but you're going to find a theme about me. You're going to see there's a lot of healthy food. You're going to see there's a lot of music. Right? So if you can spark the conversation and you can sell me on, Jason, I want you to be able to, my business will help you see more music and have healthier foods. You can afford to buy more organic food and more of this and more of that. I want to help you do that. You got my attention. You already invested. It took 5 minutes. Hit request if it's not open and you have to request my Instagram thing. Take 5 minutes and do that to the person that you're trying to reach out to, that you want to do business to. You want to become an investigative reporter. And you want to know about them as much as you can before you step up to the plate and do that. So I don't know if there's anybody who's out there that has any questions.
I know I've seen some people come in and out, some thumbs up. And if you guys are watching this on the replay too, definitely hashtag replay and feel free to drop some comments in. Like we said, this is kind of a beta format. We're hoping to launch this into a podcast and doing some other interesting things. With Jason and I's background and our different experiences being both similar and different, I think there's value. And our big thing is, and I talk about this a lot, I love Grant, I love Gary, I love all these guys, but I think application is so important. I'm a former teacher and I know how important it is to transfer knowledge so that you can apply it and find what you're great at. And it's funny, I in my business too, I've even hired and worked with former students and things like that, because it's just, you could see that they've been able to adapt and learn. They always weren't my best students, but sometimes they were great to work with and be able to see them.
I was the worst student in my
things.
class.
So was I. There's a place for us out there now in the world. It's called entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
But for you guys, that's really our goal, is to kind of help with the application of these things. Because like I said, you're not going to be Grant, you're not going to be Gary, and that's okay. But they have so much great information, and how do we get those pieces of the buffet and put them where they belong? And we really want to help with that. I think that's the biggest thing. And I love, like everyone says, do you miss teaching? I said, well, I don't miss being stuck in a building from 7:30 to 2:30 and waking up early. I still wake up early, but not having to be somewhere early. But I love teaching. I loved helping. I love seeing people have the aha moment, which is why I got into consulting and started working with people. And
I think that the consulting piece is very different than teaching, right? I think teaching, anybody can teach an idea, but there's a difference, I think, in my opinion, between teaching and educating.
Yes.
Right? Teaching is just really giving over data from one source to another, and going back to really taking a step back to what's the difference between watching a webinar or reading a book and going to a conference. There's a difference, right? That's being taught. That's like, it's one directional data. When you're engaging at a conference, when you're engaging with people like us as coaches and business development people and therapists, there's an interactive pattern. So I think I want to amplify what you're saying, is that it's more than being a teacher, it's being an educator. And an educator, I really feel, is, let me help you find and distill the data that's going to bring out your potential for who you are based on what you need. And that's really what we want to offer.
Mr. Miyagi style. So you don't even realize you're doing it. It should just be coming naturally to you. That you're
and it's a reciprocal process, because the more that person grows, the better we're going to get. The better we get, the more the person grows.
And I think that's an important thing too. I mean, attending these conferences, it's funny, you see something, a lot of these guys talk about, Dave and John and even Grant and some of the other people always said, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. I went to a Tom Ferry event that he did, and Bill Pipes was giving the seminar, and he talked about how he has 5 coaches and the things he does. I mean, Tony Robbins talks about that he coaches people like Bill Clinton and Serena Williams, all these great people that you're like, well, what do they need? What do they need help with? Like what do they need motivation for? And it's so important, I think, to look at that. We're all constantly learning.
Isn't that humility? And I think that no matter where we're at, I think this is going back to a few conversations ago that we had with you guys, was get coached up. It's not, if your ego is in the way because you think, I know how to do this, you don't know how to ask questions. It doesn't matter if it's from a coach or from a family member or someone you trust, but you need to have your dream team of people that you go to. We've been doing that for each other over the last couple of months in a lot of ways. And we have other people also, right, that we both rely on and trust. But if you don't have your dream team of people that are going to be the people, you're going to, who are you going to pull off the bench
Right.
that you need.
You're the product of the biggest 5 people
Right.
you hang around with. I
Right.
mean, that's true. And you may be LeBron. You may go to a couple different cities and move around. You may be Michael, and you may stay in one, and then towards the end of your career,
Right.
go
And you may
somewhere
buy
else.
the team, right?
Yeah, you never know. But it's important to have that. I think it's important not to plateau, right? And that's really the point. Is don't anyone that I've ever met that's been successful, their worst times were when they became complacent, right? Their worst periods were when they say, "Well, I got that first round of success, and then I just got comfortable."
There's nothing better than the guy who's
yeah.
constantly talking about, in 1986, when I started doing real estate,
yeah.
I made $2 million that year.
Yeah.
They've made $100,000 each year subsequently, but
Right.
all they do, right, in my world, I call that's the unfinished business.
Yes.
If you know that person, if you're that person that's constantly talking about what happened that senior year of high school, or that party you threw in college, or that one person you dated, and you haven't moved past that, you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
stuck.
I mean, the key should be new stories.
New stories,
I mean, it should be every year there should be an event, a story. What is the things? My entrepreneurial career has taken me amazing places. I mean, I've, had millionaires and billionaires invest in companies I've been with. I've got to work with large Fortune 500 companies, which have allowed me to do crazy things like traveling on private planes and things like that. Things I never thought I would have done. But if I just said, well, I did that and now it's done, like now there's like, what's the next thing? Like maybe it's owning the private plane, maybe it's doing those things, but I think the idea, the definition of what success is, I've reached certain levels of success in my business and went and bought the toys and all that, but like now, like it's so, especially this last year, it's so switched for me. The most valuable thing I could buy right now, which I would almost pay any amount of money for, is time.
Yeah.
More time with my kids, more time with my wife, more time for myself.
More time doing this.
Yeah, more time doing stuff like this. And it doesn't mean that I don't want to hustle. It doesn't mean that I don't want to work. I want to hustle being a dad. I want to hustle being a husband. I want to hustle, in growing my business. I want to hustle with my social media presence. But it's prioritizing and balancing that. And I think the wealth that's going to come from, and the satisfaction that I've gotten from purchasing things, I think it's something important to talk about, because we do see in a lot of these entrepreneurial groups, Grant has the plane, Grant has the cars, but that's not what it's about, right? It's about the cars and planes are a byproduct of success. And Grant is not motivated by the cars and the planes.
Not at all.
He's motivated by success. The cars and planes are just a byproduct of it. But where I felt the greatest joy is not when I bought my dream car, not when I bought my dream home, which the dream home had a little bit of an aspect of it because I got to bring my family there. But going on a vacation with my kids and having them right on the pad in the hotel room, like, this is the best hotel we've ever stayed in, like, those are the things that have moved me,
That moves the needle.
And you
That
just
moves the needle.
and you just took a great trip overseas to Europe.
Right.
You know what I mean? I talk to so many people that do, like, well, I got to travel and I got to go here and I got to go look at and don't, and we should probably close on this, don't discount what the rewards of success are for you.
That may not be monetary.
Yeah, that may not be, or whatever it is, time, recognition,
freedom,
growth, whatever it is. Look at don't get so caught up in just building the business and not seeing what the fruit of that success is. And it may be within the business, if you're a restaurant owner or you're a realtor, maybe it is, you get the satisfaction of getting the trophy for being the highest salesman, or you get the satisfaction of seeing the person smile while they eat. But look at what outside of your business is rewarding to you, and what do you enjoy. It may be self-improvement, going to a seminar, reading a book, but that personal time and that personal growth and that personal aspect of, like, knowing when to shut down, because you mentioned it, burnout, right?
Yeah.
It's so easy to burn out today, especially being so connected. And any great person that I've heard speak always talks about they take time to meditate, they take time to work out, they take time they take time to do the things that matter to them, maybe from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m., but they're taking the time to do it. Yeah. So that I think is a huge component, because, like you said, self-awareness, and I think taking care of yourself is most important. Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing. So cool, man.
Cool. We want to thank you all for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We're hopefully going to do this more often.
Yeah, we're going to put a schedule together and prioritize and figure out where it lays. But like I said, if you guys are watching this on the replay, any questions, please definitely comment. We wanted to beta this in the 10X group because we got a lot of respect for everybody in here and the content you guys have been putting out as well. So.
Well, how can they follow you? How can they
so definitely, if you guys want to follow me, obviously I went live and I tagged Jason and myself, so click on either one of our names and friend us. That's a great way to follow us. Yep. You can also check me out at themagsgroup.com as well and see kind of what we do with the business development consulting, and always DM me. I'm always up for a nice little chat. Just don't ask where I'm from or what I do. So
exactly. Instagram, Jason Wasser, LMFT. My private practice in Fort Lauderdale, the Family Room SFL.com, the Family Room Wellness Associates, and also easily Facebook. can reach out to us, and we'd love to hear some ideas about what you want us to brainstorm and collaborate, and we'd also want to get on with you guys.
Yeah.
And how can we be helpful to you? We'd love to do this processing, brainstorming, biz dev, psychological side. What can we do to help you, help our 10X community, help our friends that are out there, whether we've met you or not yet, right? Keyword is yet. Soon. And very short period of time, right?
You never know where.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right now. Turn around.
Right now.
No, just kidding.
Exactly. So that's it. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks,
and,
guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
We're going to dance it out because that's what I do. It's Friday. Get your Friday on. Take care, everybody. Let me reach in here.